Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another week here on the Patterson Report podcast. I'm Brandon. He's Ryan, and a little bit of a shift this week. We told you there's going to be a couple of these coming up where not a ton has happened on the Eagles side of things. There was one huge news story which we'll close on for today, but for the majority of the pod, we're looking ahead. We're looking towards spring. It's warm. For those of you who are listening in the Mid-Atlantic, it's got you kind of feeling like baseball weather. So we're going back to the ballpark this week. We're looking ahead because at this time next week, I believe the Phillies will have been underway. So we're going to take a quick look at what that season's going to look like for the Phillies. We're going to bury the lead a little bit because there's a move you and I talked about that kind of, I think, showed what the season's going to be like. But from what you've seen in spring training, what have you liked? What's concerned you? How are the vibes heading into the regular season?
I mean, I haven't gotten to see much of spring training. I got to watch them absolutely dismantle the Braves that one game, and that was about it. So, all I've seen was up here. I haven't witnessed down here yet.
Okay. There's been some of
that. I haven't gotten to, look into it much because baseball for me starts as soon as March Madness ends. And, we're at the peak of that right now. It's crazy. I don't know if your bracket's busted. Mine's finished.
I had Clemson winning the whole damn thing, buddy.
I lost 4 Sweet 16 teams today. I'm like, usually I do good headed into the second round and then it starts to dismantle itself.
Mm-hmm.
But today, the
day one.
First day. But anyway, I'm excited for this Phillies season. Obviously, baseball, it's already back technically. You have the Tokyo series between the Dodgers and the Cubs. I didn't get to watch much of that.
Me either.
There was a little controversial call in there. So, hopefully that doesn't put a damper on the start of the season because that fan kind of clearly reached over for Shohei's ball. It kind of felt like, and, I'm not salty, but I would have probably won a DraftKings contest if that didn't happen. But maybe I'm just a little salty about it. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, the vibes of the Phillies, we said it throughout the year, throughout last year as well. It feels like this is the last season where they're given our grace and they're giving, just some leniency. Obviously, the Schwarber deal is up. I believe Castellanos is up this season as well. So that's something to look at. JT's discussing a contract extension. So it feels like this core outside of Trey and Bryce, we're going to be here for forever at this point, unless this team becomes, the mid 2010s again and they want to say, see ya, which I wouldn't blame them if that happened, but I don't think it will.
No, I think Middleton, I mean, as long as those two guys are here, I think Middleton's going to keep his foot down to a, relatively strong degree, but I think you're right. I think two things are true this year. And it's kind of a bummer. I mean, look, I love baseball in general. So I'm going to watch most of the year as I typically do. What I think the difference is, I mean, last year when the Phillies were so good early on, it was so fun because we were the best team in baseball. Everybody was talking about us. The bank was packed, and you felt like, okay, they got their heart broken last year, and they're not. This year is completely different. Like you put the D-backs kind of in the rear view, and then to see a season go that well. And then skid into the playoffs playing horrible baseball and then get dismantled by the Mets. For me now, no matter how this regular season goes, it's almost like talk to me in August. I don't care how great we are in the first half of the year because I've seen us do that before. Talk to me in August. And, it does take a little bit of the excitement out of the entire season. Like I said, I'm still going to watch. I love the team. I love the Phils. But it's a different tone this year. It's what have you done for me lately?
Exactly. And they need to have a strong finish to the season. Also, because, all-star festivities are coming to the town in 2026, you want to make a good impression there, which is going to be awesome. I can't wait to go to the home. I'm going to the Derby. I'm pretty sure. Tickets are usually okay. So hopefully Philly doesn't pack that stadium, but
I would love to. I'm with you. I'm gonna catch something. I would love for it to be the Derby. I'm gonna go no matter what. If I can't swing,
it's on my bucket list.
I'll
All-Star Weekend festivities are on my bucket list. But anyway,
if not the Derby, I'll go to the celebrity softball. I don't care. I just want to be there for some of it.
It's going to be a fantastic weekend at CBP. But anyway, it's kind of like, you have to be good. There's these expectations that you have to live up to. I quoted it so often on this show. It feels like I'm just, re-quoting myself, but sometimes your time has passed and, you can't always say we'll be back. And I've said that so many times. You say that about the Eagles back when, whatnot. It feels like the Diamondbacks year was the year. It feels like that was the one where the iron was hot. The team was great. It was all, ready to go in the books, and then it just fell apart.
Yeah, because, it's easy to say that the Astros year was the year, but you ran into a buzzsaw of an Astros team, and you weren't fully loaded yet. I mean,
that was overperformance.
Yes.
That was an overperformance.
That team gave Dombrowski and co. the confidence to push their chips in and go get Trey the next year because you thought maybe we're a star away. And, then the D-back, I think you're right. I think that year, that was the year where it when we were supposed to win it. And that's not to say, you can't turn the clock back and win another one and still do it this year, but it's going to be the hard way. That was the year where baseball got out of our way. The D-backs were good. They beat us, but we had a favorable trip. We're gonna meet a Ranger team that got hot out of nowhere, but was bad all regular season. The red carpet was laid out for us, and now when you're looking ahead, even last year, Atlanta was out of the way. All you had to do was beat a Mets team that was bad for the first half of the year, and we couldn't do that. And what we got for waiting around, the Braves reloaded. They're back. They're going to be a problem in the East. The Mets go out and get Juan Soto. The Dodgers get better every single year. They're the best team we've probably ever seen assembled. And you might have waited around too long because now you might be the fourth best team in the NL.
That's why the Diamondbacks year was the year, because the Padres did the dirty work for the Phillies. They didn't have to meet the Dodgers. They were gone.
Yeah.
All they had to do was just beat the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, the Astros were out of the way. They weren't the same team as they usually were. You had the Rangers waiting for you, which it should have been a buzzsaw for that Phillies team.
I think we look back on that. I think that one was more heartbreaking than the Super Bowl. I don't know.
I had more of a feeling after the Super Bowl. I had more of a "we'll be back" feeling than I did after the D-backs. Immediately after that series, the doubt crept into the back of your mind that maybe this was it. You immediately felt like you missed a window. With the Super Bowl, it was like, man, Jalen's young. He overperformed. You saw, you knew AJ. You still had AJ. You still had Devontae. The core was there for a few more years. I never thought we wouldn't get that.
Yeah, I agree. When you get a heartbreaking loss like that, you just want to, space yourself from the sport. I spaced myself from baseball longer. I was like, I don't want to watch this. I'm done. Who cares what's going on?
Yeah.
But football, I did stop evaluating draft prospects for 2 weeks. I said that was a hold. That wasn't a hold. I don't want to do this anymore. But it was a hold. But it just feels like there's so much goodwill in this town now because of what the Eagles did, and it like the title says, it kind of puts these expectations on the Phillies because we know the Sixers aren't hosting a parade anytime soon.
No.
Shout out Quentin Grimes though; he's been balling. I got to give him his props. I know we're not going to talk about.
He's going to get a bag, hopefully with us, but he's going to get a bag.
Bro, you gotta. Dude, how does the Mavs GM still have a job? Come on now. We've been asking
will after this year.
We've been asking how Nico's.
They hired personal security for him. Have you heard that?
No, I have
security
not.
At his house.
It shouldn't be that bad. That's fans taking it over the line.
Yeah.
But he should be canned instantly. But come on, dude. It is just sports, and that you don't have to hire personal security. Those were terrible moves. But you don't go that far. There's a line there. There's a line.
But just to think, I mean, and look, we have a half-hour show to do with it what we want. So we don't have. I mean, we can. If we're going to talk about GMs, I do want to bring up our own debacle of a GM in Philly. Now, this caption is not relating to one of the greatest Sixers of all time, and Allen Iverson, as much as I wish that it were. Has it come across your desk that our current GM is using AI to run the franchise?
I thought it was fake because you know who tweeted it. I thought it was fake.
Yeah, but I don't think that's essential.
He's breaking news now. He's breaking news now.
Yeah, I don't think that's essential.
Yeah, I thought it was. He's breaking legit news now, and it's kind of trippy. Someone taught him Photoshop, and kudos whoever did that because.
Yeah, this wasn't Sentinel. This was
he tweeted though. He tweeted it though.
Oh yeah, this was CBS.
I love the Josh meme. Just like Sentinel.
Like, yeah, Sentinel? Who the hell's? Oh, it's Marcus Morris Sr. Said he was, he said the thing I like about Daryl Morey was he's always trying to outsmart the game. I heard he uses AI to decide on some of the off-season moves and the free agency moves he was making. Now look, Marcus Morris Sr. had a reason to be pissed. If you remember that season, he was here, North Philly boy, come on home, end of your career. He could have finished it out here. He was hooping the first half of the year. And then Morey traded him for a bag of packing peanuts. And, a couple years later, he's kind of aired it out. But just from what you hear about Daryl Morey, I didn't for a second believe that he didn't use AI. He seems like the exact person who would run franchise-altering moves through ChatGPT.
I believe it. I totally believe it. Like you said, he does have a reason to be upset, but I miss Sam Hinkie. I miss him so much.
He got a raw deal.
He had a vision, and the vision was panning out. And then they said, bye-bye. And then they brought in, maybe these GMs with their burners and their AI usage and, whatnot. Maybe you should take a page from another GM in town's book in Howie Roseman, because I've been seeing it around. The Eagles they wanted Azeez Ojulari, they wanted Josh Uche, and Howie's like, all right, here you go,
Yeah, Howie, but he learned. Remember, he used to be Daryl Morey. He used to be the smartest guy in the room. I know something nobody else knows. I'm going to take Jalen Reagor.
That was the best pick in the history of the franchise.
Because it completely altered his thinking.
I stand by that take. That was the best pick in the history of the franchise, just because it altered Howie in so many ways and led us to 3 Super Bowls with 2 wins. It just changed his whole thought process after he saw Justin Jefferson become an All-Pro, and he learned. And that's what you got to do as a GM or as a coach. You got to learn. You got to adapt. We say this as well. We talked about running backs and how they were going one way, and then Howie's like, here's Saquon, here's a ton of money. And Saquon goes out and wins us a Super Bowl. He learns. He adapts.
And you look at what's right in front of you. Like, yeah, sure, the league trend and the analytics and the whatever say, hey, don't pay your running back. Howie also looked and said, there's a generational running back in my division who's being undervalued. They gave him what I thought it was a huge running back contract to begin with. But as we saw this year, Saquon was such a life-changing, franchise-altering, market-changing player that they had to give him a raise after year 1. And nobody cared. And nobody, all the cap people, everybody who's worried about the analytics, not one person was like, well, you don't pay run. Everyone went, yep, good call. Because sometimes some guys break trends. He's not just a running back. He alters everything that team does, so you pay him accordingly.
Mm-hmm. And, it's such goodwill with players, which I don't think, I think the Phillies have it. They treat their players right. I don't know about the Sixers.
They do not.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I forget who reported this. Was it Daniel Jeremiah with the Azeez Ojulari contract? It had an interesting little bit in there where I think it was from the fans' perspective, not the coaches, but like it was like, why would you want to play for some AFC or NFC South team? He didn't mention the exact team, but you know, you could pick your poison there. And he's like, you want to play for the Eagles because it boosts your stock because you won't be playing at 1 p.m. every Sunday. You'll be playing in the primetime games. You'll get to show yourself off to national media. And, you know, some people took that as oh, you're telling me playing for the Eagles affects your stock, you know, with coaches because you're playing in primetime games. But it was more so the fans and whatnot. So, you know, there's purpose here. So,
yeah, and
you know, you build yourself up as a franchise. You know, you pay your players, you're good. You play in primetime games, you get yourself out there. Like, it's an ideal scenario.
And that's the key. Like, what drives me nuts, and we'll get back to the Phils here in a second, because they do this too, by and large. But you know, everybody's offering ludicrous money. But if your franchise routinely treats the guys well, you have a good fan base, you have a good clubhouse or a locker room in the Eagles sense, like these guys are more likely to come take a flyer and play for you rather than other places. And you're able to get guys on deals. Like I have no doubt that Ojulari could have probably gotten a little bit more money somewhere else, but the Eagles have a reputation now of being a place where you go rebuild your career. You can look at guys like Mekhi Becton, who came in and nobody wanted them. And I thought he should have signed for more. He gets a 2-year, $20 million deal out the door. Zach Bond was a special teamer. He gets paid as a top end linebacker. Like once you get that mantra of, hey, you know, the market's not great. I could take $3 million annually and go play for New Orleans and get buried. Or I can take a 1-year hit, go play in Philly, rebuild my image completely, become twice the player that I was.
Maybe get a ring, become beloved in the city. Like,
yeah, and you go get paid. But for that year, the Eagles are better because they came.
Yep.
Same thing with the Phils.
Yep. And, you know, you don't see that with the Sixers. I mean, obviously the role players throughout the years, but it's just one of those things where there's got to be like, you know, a look yourself in the mirror moment. And I'm not saying, you know, for Dombrowski yet. That's coming. But see, look at you. You're changing the titles perfectly. I don't even know they're there before the show. And then, you know,
I think
you got to change how you think.
Yeah.
If you're Daryl Morey, I mean, James Harden came out and said, you are just the worst person ever. Like that happened.
But that gets out in the league, and then nobody wants to play for it. What's interesting, though, is the reason I put this banner up is not – it fit two purposes. It fit the GM discussion. I think more importantly, getting back to the Phillies, it fits the mantra this year of just win. Like, it's not about – for so long, you know, you love the guys. You had the daycare. It was the water thrown on each other, the vibes in the clubhouse, the team songs. And like all that stuff was so heartwarming and well and good because we were just kind of, it was gravy. The Phillies were bad for so long. We were so happy to be here. And I mean, this year, kind of the end of that. Like people, the park's going to be packed, vibes are going to be high. Don't get me wrong. But we're not just going to be happy to be there anymore. And I think the Phillies showed the fans they recognized that when Rafael Marchand got the nod as your backup catcher for 2025 because he's twice the player on the field that Stubbsy is. And Stubbs was valuable in the locker room. He was the DJ. He was the chief vibes officer. He was a great guy. But that wasn't going to be enough anymore. And I'm glad that the Phillies recognized it and brought the best catcher up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they definitely made the right call. And, you know, there's still fun to be had in a winning season. Like, we don't want to see the fun and the vibes go away necessarily, but you have to serious up if you want to go beat a team like the Dodgers, you know, who keep adding every year. Ohtani might pitch, but that might be later in the season. So it's just one of those things like you got to be serious, but, you know, I still want to see John Kruk slam one of those s'mores quesadillas. I don't know if you saw those. They're new to the bank this year. I want to see him, you know, like in an 8-0 game against like the Marlins or something like that. I want the camera just pan to him in the 5th inning, just absolutely chowing down on one of those things. Like,
oh yeah, like don't get me wrong.
They're still fun to be had.
Yeah, I want it to be fun. Like, I love the fact that people talk about the Phillies as if they're a college team. I think that's why players do want to come here. To get back to our last point, like, Topper's a great players manager. They have a great clubhouse. Everybody says Schwarber is like, kind of the president of the team in the clubhouse and stuff. Like, I don't want any of that stuff to change. I think optically the difference is that stuff isn't enough anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be willing to sacrifice the fun in areas where you need to in order to win.
Yeah, you could argue, along with Shore being the clubhouse leader, he was the best hitter on the team for like over half the season.
He was an animal last year.
There were just some games
the regular season were both fantastic.
There was just some games where I turn on the TV. It's like an afternoon game against the Blue Jays. It's that one where he hit like 3 nukes. Like,
I'm gonna miss him leading off.
It's absolutely crazy. But like, do you think we're going to see a lineup change this year? Because they have flirted with that a little bit in spring training. I have seen that where he was batting, I believe, 4th behind Bryce.
I'll have to look. I know the one I saw them use on a couple occasions had Trey at leadoff, Bryce at 2. I think it was Bohm or Casti at 3,
yeah,
and then Schwarber at 4. Because the hard part is you're trying to protect Bryce as best as you can. And they didn't really do a great job at addressing that in the offseason because
you can't.
It's really hard, but you would like to get somebody before him that can hit consistently for power. Because, you have guys like Schwarber can hit bombs. He had a great year last year, don't get me wrong. But he's known to be inconsistent. Casti, I love. I think he gets way too much hate. He can get cold. Like, you don't have everybody on this team you'd rather take your chances with than Bryce. And it's not close enough for other teams to even think about it.
Yeah, that's why, last year we wanted Brett Rooker so bad because he would have been a nice power bat to protect Bryce. I don't know where he would have put him, probably in left, but, that's an argument we don't need to have because he got a nice payday from the Athletics who are, moving to Vegas.
First time ever.
Yeah, they're starting to pay people. When they dished out that contract to Severino, I could not believe it. But anyway,
it's Vegas money, even though they're not there yet.
They're not there yet. I think they're playing in a minor league stadium this year, but that's interesting enough. But we'll get that vibe. We eventually head out there. I think we do. I don't know exactly when, but
I will say, to your point, I wanted Rooker. We both wanted Rooker so badly because he was
so good.
He was a monster last year. An underrated signing that I hated initially because I didn't think it was enough was Kepler, and I gotta say he's had a really good spring. I mean, he has had one of the best springs of a Philly. So I would love to be wrong, but he was a guy that I was upset that we brought in, who's so far has proven me wrong.
Yeah, we want to be proven wrong. Like, if Kepler comes out here and is an adequate, 6'7" guy, what more could you ask for? I mean, he's not going to be, like what he was in his heyday for the Twins, where he was batting 3rd, and I believe he was hitting 280, getting a couple balls out the park. But, it's just one of those things where was it enough? Probably not.
No, because it comes on the heels of the Mets got Soto, and the Phillies were like, yeah, but guys, we got Max Kepler. And, actually, it wasn't even just Soto. Think about it. It was so Soto went to the Mets. Then you miss out on Kyle Tucker. Then you miss out on Cody Bellinger. And then our consolation prize at that point was Max Kepler. And it was like,
It was 260, not 280. Max Kepler never got there in terms of average, but he's shown some good power over the years. So we'll see what comes of him. But man, I just wish
dies on the hill. Let's just call it what it is. We're gonna live in what's so backwards is the Phillies for so long were home run or bust. Okay. And this year, I think if we're going to get to where we need to go, it's going to be the starting rotation that drags us there, kicking and screaming.
I mean, say is go out and score 3 to 4 runs on a night. Most of our starting pitchers should be able to get that done on a nightly basis.
Especially
So
if Ranger's healthy, we'll see if the back becomes a thing, then we're fucked. But I mean, if they can get, dude, think of that rotation. If they go 6 deep at their peak, if everyone's healthy, I mean, there's nobody you're looking forward to if you're an opposing player. I mean, Wheels is one of the best in the game, top 3 probably. You can make a really good argument for. I mean, he's always a Cy Young contender. Nola is as good as they come. Sanchez looks like a guy possessed this year. He's throwing 98. The changeup's still devastating. He's going to be a top pitcher in the NL. Your 4 is Ranger Suarez, who's one of the best postseason pitchers that we've seen in a long, long time. Actually, no, Ranger might be your 5 because Luzardo might be your 4, who's, other than a bad outing last time out, has had a great spring. Mm-hmm. And you're, 6 is Andrew Painter, who you don't know what he could be, but he's supposed to be really freaking good. So, I mean, it'd be a 6-man rotation of 6 absolute dogs.
I kind of like it because you get to give Wheels and Nola, they're getting older, a little extra rest. You don't have to trot them out every 5 days. But man, oh man, some of these guys just have my respect forever. Like Zach Wheeler coming in relief in those playoff games. Oh man, like kudos to you, man.
He's an animal.
Him and Ranger.
Ranger closed. Remember?
They have some of the best moments. If only we could have finished the job. Like they would be remembered so much more fondly than they are.
Yeah, I mean, the Ranger on the mound when we're going to the World Series is one that I don't think I'll ever forget.
I won't either. And we always say that we need to see Alvarado close out a World Series. Did you see that curveball? Did you see that curveball?
It broke the wrong way. Like the batter was standing there like, the fuck?
Tommy Pham was the most confused I've seen a batter in a long time. Like,
because he probably just saw a 99-mile-an-hour splitter. That's devastating. And then it's like, okay, well, at least everything's hard. And then you have like an 85-mile-an-hour changeup that breaks reverse in on the hit. What the hell do you do?
You just don't hit it. You just look at it.
And Jordan Romano's looked good. I mean, you have 2 really good back-end guys. And once Strahm gets healthy, you put him in that mix. Look, the bullpen's thinner than it's been previously. I mean, you can't lose Jeff Hoffman and Estevez and get better, I don't think, especially with, losing Hoff.
They did have sour endings, though.
They did, but, I mean, they were good. They were really good relievers.
They were really good until, it just, you relied on them a little too much, and
Well, nobody we know the Mets. I mean, it didn't matter who you threw out there. Nobody was doing their job.
No.
But this will still be a better pen with them in it. Especially because Kerkering hasn't quite looked up to speed just yet.
Mm-hmm. I think he'll get there, though.
He will. He'll be fine. It's just going to
He's had enough promise.
But yeah, Alvarado looks like a problem this year, which was good because he was really bad last year.
Yeah, but now he needs to step up with those 2 gone, and I think he's going to return to that form. And him in that form is probably the best thing possible for the Phillies. We need the bullpen help.
And we have a minute and a half left here, and I want to ask you a deep philosophical question about bullpen usage. Because there's 2 schools of thought here, and I hear both of them a lot in the streets, let's say. Do you think Jose Alvarado is more valuable to this team as a true blue, bottom of the 9th, shut the door closer? Or do you think he's more valuable in his current put out fires wherever they pop up role?
Ooh, that's a great question. The answer could easily change with the offseason losses like we just mentioned. I think you need him to close out games now unless Romano was that guy. Because it's very valuable when you could say, oh man, there's 2 runners on base. We're up 1 run in the 7th inning. Hey, Jose Alvarado, come in. We need you. And they did that for like 20 to 25 games. It felt like more actually, but
yeah, that's kind of where I like them. I think, look, the ninth is heavy. Like it's high pressure, but 9 times out of 10, you're inheriting a clean inning. I love the idea, like you just said, where shit can hit the fan in a 1-run game, and you have this secret weapon. that you can bring in Alvarado, who, if right, that batter now has to deal with 102 on the fastball, a 99-mile-an-hour sinker, and then now that he's working in some off-speed stuff, like when he's right, he's almost unhittable. So being able to throw him out in a jam and get out of it is so valuable. I would feel better. I put it this way. I trust him more in that spot than I do anybody else. And I would feel equally as comfortable having Strom or Romano shut the door as I would with Alvarado.
Yeah, I mean, if Romano turns back the clock at 21 or 22 or even 23, I would much prefer keeping Alvarado in that role and just relying on one of them to close the door, depending on your matchups for the inning. You could play matchups then.
Yeah.
Heck, you could even use them both if it's a big game. I mean, I like our back end of the bullpen, especially if Romano shows, his true stuff in the regular season. I know he's had a good spring, but we need to see it. I need to see it first, and then we can go to Alvarado and that, slam the door, get us out of anything jam that may occur from, if the starter pitches 6-7 innings and, got to pull him there, or Kirkering or someone gets in trouble.
Yeah.
Having Alvarado come in and just absolutely close the inning out, I think it's the perfect scenario. So I would go with that. But if Romano is not good this year, I say you just leave him for the ninth.
That's fair. Let Romano decide. I mean, as much as Romano was brought in to be the closer, I think if I like Alvarado in that role so much, he would be my third. I would let Romano fail, to your point. I think I would see what Strom looks like at the back end of games, and then if we need to use Alvarado, I might go to Alvarado. But I'd feel okay with Strom having to close games out too if we need him to. He is a guy who bringing him in a jam does not work and never has. He is not. He likes a clean inning.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that last year in the postseason where it's like, all right, well, bring Strom in. Shit's hitting the fan, and it got worse.
It'll be interesting to see how this bullpen plays out because these starters are so good. So, how will that impact the bullpen usage? Because some nights we could just go, Luzardo, Ranger if he's healthy, go 6, and then you just go Alvarado, Strom, Romano, and don't have to use anyone else, and you're good to go.
That is the nice thing. All of our starters go long. I mean, probably the shortest outings typically would probably come from Ranger because he's, I love Ranger. He's a really good pitcher. He is 5 2/3, maybe 6. Whereas Wheeler, you can count on 6. Nola, you count on 6. Sanchez last year became that guy. He threw a ton of innings. So 3/5 of the pen should take you to the 7th, and you can do your plan and just throw out 3 studs back to back to back and get out of there.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be a nice season. I like what Dombrowski did looking back on it. I like the trade for Luzardo. That prospect was blocked. Never going to get up with Trey, on this crazy deal. You couldn't spend the money, 1-year deals. Max Kepler, Jordan Romano, reclamation projects. If they return to form or even close to form, you got steals. You couldn't go out and pay Juan Soto money. I think, it was a pipe dream for us, and, we wanted it to happen, but it was never going to happen. It's a bummer that he went to the Mets, though. Now I have to root against him, but
yeah, that sucks. But all right, gang, this does it for this heavy Phillies and Sixers version of the Patterson Report podcast. We will be back next week. Probably will be a week close to the draft. We'll talk off air and find out when we want to start doing some draft stuff, but it could even be next week. But before we do, just want to give a quick shout out, a big farewell to an Eagle legend, BG. Brandon Graham called it quits this week after one of the great Eagle careers, going out in the most perfect fashion imaginable. Last Eagle currently on the roster to have played for Andy Reid, if you're curious as to how long he's been an Eagle. So shout out to BG, one of the best to ever do it. Biggest sack in Eagle history, and he'll be an Eagles Ring of Honor guy soon enough.
Yeah, he will. And I gotta say, it takes a special kind of person to make Jalen Hurts act goofy in a photo. I saw that tweet. I have to say that, he was throwing up the 1-5 for his 15 years. And like, you got to be a special kind of person to do that. I saw the post. It was really nice. Jalen Hunt looked was a mentor. He was there. So it's really nice to see, that, BG's going to be in the building, because he did talk with the guys upstairs and said, hey, I want to help out still. So he's still going to be around. He's just not going to be on the field anymore, which sucks, but
he'll make a difference. So
he will.
Big shout out to BG, man. One of the best ever. And we look forward to seeing what that role looks like coming up. Maybe we'll even know some more next week. But until then, I'm Brandon. That's Ryan. This has been the Passing Report. Now get back to March Madness.